The Earth once belonged to titans that dwarfed our wildest nightmares. But 73 million years ago, in the dying light of the Cretaceous, even gods could bleed. The Triceratops stood motionless in the fern-choked valley, its three-horned skull scarred by a lifetime of battles, unaware that this day would be different. Above, the sky burned with an unnatural fire. If creatures weighing 8 tons, armored like living fortresses, couldn't survive what was coming, what hope would any of us have? The late Cretaceous was a world that defied comprehension. Massive inland seas split North America in two, while volcanic ranges belched poison into skies thick with carbon dioxide. The western interior seaway stretched from the Gulf of Mexico to the Arctic Ocean, a primordial highway where marine reptiles the size of sperm whales hunted in waters that boiled with life. On land, the Triceratops herds moved like living mountains across landscapes painted in blood and shadow. But this wasn't just another day in Paradise Lost. The fossil record shows something terrifying. In the final million years before the Great Dying, volcanic activity in what we now call India was already poisoning the atmosphere. The Deccan traps were unleashing hell on Earth, spewing enough lava to bury all of Texas under a mile of molten rock. Yet the dinosaurs endured, adapted, fought on against a planet that was slowly turning against them. They had no idea that their true executioner was hurtling through the cold void of space at 40,000 miles per hour. The asteroid that would end their world was roughly 6 miles across, a mountain of rock and metal forged in the birth fires of the solar system. For millions of years, it had drifted in the darkness between Mars and Jupiter, just another piece of cosmic debris. But gravitational forces, subtle and patient, had nudged it into a collision course with Earth. The dinosaurs had ruled for 160 million years, surviving ice ages, volcanic catastrophes, and countless mass extinctions. They seemed invincible. But invincibility is always an illusion, and on that final day, physics would prove stronger than flesh and bone. The morning of the impact began like countless others. Triceratops herds grazed on flowering plants that had evolved alongside them for tens of millions of years. In the distance, a Tyrannosaurus rex stalked through stands of giant ferns, its massive skull scanning for weakness among the herbivore ranks. Overhead, pterosaurs with 40-foot wingspans soared on thermals rising from the warming Earth. The ecosystem hummed with the violence and beauty that had defined the Mesozoic era. None of them saw the flash in the northern sky. But what happened next rewrote the rules of existence on Earth. When the 6-mile-wide asteroid struck the Yucatan Peninsula, it released energy equivalent to 10 billion atomic bombs. The impact crater, which we now call Chicxulub, stretched 120 miles across and 12 miles deep. In the first seconds after impact, rock was vaporized and ejected into space, carrying with it pieces of the asteroid and chunks of Earth's crust that would rain down as molten glass across the globe. The shockwave traveled faster than sound, faster than comprehension. Trees were flattened for thousands of miles in every direction. The impact triggered earthquakes that registered magnitude 11 on the Richter scale, powerful enough to be felt on the opposite side of the planet. But the earthquakes were just the opening act in Earth's symphony of destruction. The real killer was what came after. Within hours, the debris ejected into space began falling back to Earth as superheated glass spheres. The sky rained fire, igniting forests across entire continents. The heat was so intense that it boiled the ocean's surface layers and cooked any animal unfortunate enough to be caught in the open. The mighty Triceratops, with all its armor and evolutionary perfection, found itself helpless against an enemy that attacked from above. But even this was only the beginning. The impact had hurled so much pulverized rock and debris into the atmosphere that the sun itself began to disappear behind a global shroud of dust and ash. The temperature plummeted as photosynthesis ground to a halt. The world that had basked in greenhouse warmth for millions of years suddenly found itself trapped in an impact winter that would last for years. In the darkness that followed, the age of giants came to an end. The largest dinosaurs died first, their massive bodies requiring too much food to sustain in a world where plants withered and food chains collapsed. Smaller creatures that could burrow, hibernate, or survive on seeds, and carrion inherited a broken earth. Scientists have found evidence of this cosmic catastrophe in a thin layer of clay that marks the boundary between the Cretaceous and Paleogene periods. This clay contains levels of iridium, a metal rare on Earth but common in asteroids, that are hundreds of times higher than normal. It's as if the universe signed its name on the crime scene, leaving proof that sometimes extinction comes not from earthly forces, but from the cold mathematics of celestial mechanics. If a single rock from the depths of space could erase the most successful group of animals in Earth's history, what other cosmic executioners drift in the darkness above us, patient and unseen, waiting for gravity to seal our fate? If you want to uncover the next forbidden chapter of Earth's blood-soaked history, follow us into the shadows where only the dead remember the truth. The Earth that emerged from the cosmic graveyard was unrecognizable. In the suffocating darkness that followed the Great Dying, something extraordinary happened. The meek didn't just inherit the Earth, they transformed it into a nightmare beyond dinosaur comprehension. While the last Triceratops' bones bleached white in the radioactive wasteland, creatures no bigger than rats were evolving into predators that would make a Tyrannosaurus rex seem gentle. But what crawled from the ashes of the Cretaceous wasn't salvation. It was the beginning of a new kind of horror. The Paleocene epoch dawned 66 million years ago on a planet stripped of its giants. The impact winter had lifted, but Earth resembled an alien world. Fern spikes, massive blooms of primitive plants, carpeted landscapes where mighty conifers once stood. The climate swung wildly between extremes as volcanic activity continued to pulse like an infected wound. In this shattered ecosystem, mammals began their violent ascent to dominance. They started small, but hunger makes monsters of us all. Meet Purgatorius, one of the earliest primates, our own ancestor, no bigger than a modern mouse. These tiny survivors scurried through the ruins of the dinosaur world, their large eyes adapted for hunting in the perpetual twilight. But they weren't alone in the darkness. Emerging alongside them were creatures that seemed designed by madness itself, early carnivorous mammals with teeth like razors and appetites that knew no limits. The Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, 56 million years ago, turned Earth into a greenhouse hell where crocodiles basked in Arctic swamps and palm trees grew at the poles. Global temperatures spiked by 15 degrees Fahrenheit in just a few thousand years. Geological equivalent of overnight. The oceans became acidic soup, killing everything with a shell, while on land something unprecedented was happening. Mammals were getting bigger, much bigger. In the sweltering forests of early Eocene North America, Uintatherium lumbered through undergrowth like a living bulldozer. This rhinoceros-sized beast bore 6 horns on its skull and canine teeth that curved like sabers from its upper jaw, but its brain was smaller than a modern cat's, a walking contradiction of size and stupidity that somehow thrived in the post-apocalyptic world. Scientists studying its fossilized remains found evidence of brutal territorial fights, skulls cracked and healed, testament to violence that made dinosaur battles seem civilized. But even Uintatherium would cower before what was coming next. The mammals weren't just growing larger, they were growing hungrier. Enter Andrewsarchus, potentially the largest terrestrial carnivorous mammal that ever lived. Picture a wolf the size of a grizzly bear, with jaws powerful enough to crack whale bones, stalking through the Mongolian wilderness 40 million years ago. Only fragments of its skull have been found, but those pieces tell a story of predation beyond comprehension. The skull alone measured 3 feet long, filled with teeth designed not just to kill, but to destroy. What manner of prey required such overwhelming force? What creatures roamed the Eocene that demanded a predator this nightmarish? The answer lies in the giant mammals that had replaced dinosaurs as Earth's titans. Across the continents, herbivores grew to monstrous proportions. Paraceratherium, the largest land mammal ever discovered, stood 18 feet tall at the shoulder, taller than a giraffe, heavier than 4 elephants. These hornless rhinoceros relatives browsed treetops like gentle giants, but their very existence created an arms race of violence. Where giants graze, monster hunters follow. The Eocene thermal maximum wasn't just reshaping life, it was rewriting the rules of death. As temperatures soared and ice caps vanished entirely, sea levels rose hundreds of feet above modern levels. Entire continents were submerged under shallow tropical seas, where prehistoric whales the size of modern blues began their own evolutionary arms race. Basilosaurus, a serpentine whale 60 feet long, patrolled these ancient oceans with jaws capable of biting modern great whites in half. But the true horror wasn't in the water, it was in the forests, where our own ancestors were learning to kill. The early primates of this greenhouse world weren't the gentle fruit eaters we imagine. Fossil evidence suggests many were opportunistic predators. Their forward-facing eyes evolved not for spotting ripe fruit, but for tracking prey through the canopy. In the perpetual summer of the Eocene, where winter never came and food seemed abundant, evolution was conducting experiments in violence that would echo through geological time. And then, as suddenly as it began, the greenhouse world started dying. The Eocene-Oligocene extinction event 34 million years ago brought the age of giant mammals to a catastrophic end. Global temperatures plummeted as Antarctica froze over for the first time in millions of years. The tropical paradise that had stretched from pole to pole contracted into narrow bands around the equator. In the space of a few 100,000 years, an eye blink in geological time, most of the Eocene giants vanished forever. But this wasn't just another extinction. This was evolution's cruelest joke, the rise of intelligence. As the world cooled and forests gave way to grasslands, the surviving mammals faced a new challenge. Size was no longer king, cunning was. The descendants of tiny Paleocene survivors began developing larger brains, complex social behaviors, and most terrifying of all, the ability to work together to bring down prey many times their size. The age of the lone giant was ending. The age of the pack hunter had begun. In the fossil beds of Oligocene North America, paleontologists have uncovered evidence of coordinated attacks by early canids on massive prey animals. Bite marks on fossilized bones suggest these primitive wolves didn't just hunt, they strategized, planned, executed complex group maneuvers that would make modern military tacticians envious. If creatures with brains a fraction the size of ours could develop such sophisticated killing methods, what horrors await in the darkness of our own evolutionary future? Follow us deeper into the fossil record, where each layer of rock holds secrets that make our modern nightmares seem like children's bedtime stories.